The rain was pouring in heavy sheets, tapping against the glossy windows of Daniel Carter's luxury car. He was a man known for speed, speed in business, speed in decisions, speed in life. But that night, as he turned into the driveway of his grand home, something stopped him cold. Just outside his massive iron gates, an elderly couple lay huddled on the ground, drenched, weak, and trembling. Daniel's heart skipped. These weren't strangers, he recognized them. It was Mr. and Mrs. Collins, the couple who used to run the small bookstore he'd often visited as a boy. The place where his love for reading had first begun. Daniel's first instinct was to call someone, an assistant, security, anyone. But as he stepped out into the rain, the icy water soaking his $1,000 suit, he realized this was something he had to face himself. Mr. Collins. Mrs. Collins, his voice cracked as he bent down. Their eyes fluttered open, faint but grateful. The millionaire who had everything suddenly felt powerless. Memories of warm afternoons spent in their shop, of their kindness when he couldn't afford a book, rushed back to him. They had given freely when he had nothing. Now, here they were, collapsed outside his mansion, with nothing left. Daniel knew this wasn't coincidence. This was fate knocking on his door. And for the first time in years, he felt a stirring in his soul, a reminder that money meant nothing if humanity was lost. Daniel's arms trembled as he helped the frail couple to their feet. Their clothes clung to their thin frames, soaked through from the relentless rain. He ushered them inside, ignoring the puddles forming on his marble floor. "Sit, please, sit," he urged, pulling chairs closer to the fireplace. His staff rushed forward, but Daniel raised his hand. "No. I'll take care of them." Mrs. Collins coughed weakly, her lips trembling. We didn't want to bother anyone. The shelter was full, and we thought." Her eyes fell to the ground. Daniel's throat tightened. The Collinses, once the warm-hearted owners of the neighborhood bookstore, now reduced to seeking shelter in the rain. How had the world allowed this? How had he not noticed? "I should have checked on you," Daniel whispered. "After your store closed," his voice faltered. He had been so busy building his empire that he hadn't realized the people who shaped his dreams had quietly slipped into hardship. Mr. Collins placed a frail hand on Daniel's. "You don't owe us anything, son. We're just glad you remember us." But Daniel shook his head firmly. "No. I owe you everything. Every deal I made, every success I had, began with the books you gave me when I couldn't afford them. You believed in me before the world did." For a moment, the millionaire felt like the same boy who used to curl up in the bookstore's corner, losing himself in stories. Except this time, the story unfolding was his own, and it was demanding he step into a role he had long forgotten. Not as a businessman, but as a human being. Daniel knew one thing with certainty. He would not let the Collinses suffer another night. Daniel didn't sleep that night. While the Collinses rested in his guest room, wrapped in warm blankets, his mind raced. Their presence had cracked open something inside him, a guilt he couldn't ignore. At dawn, he walked into the kitchen, where Mrs. Collins sat quietly sipping tea. Her hands trembled as she held the cup, but her smile was gentle, almost apologetic. "You don't have to trouble yourself," she said softly. "We'll be fine. We've managed this long." Daniel shook his head. "No, you haven't been fine. You collapsed outside my gate. If I hadn't seen you," he stopped, the thought unbearable. Mr. Collins appeared, leaning on his cane. "Life has a way of humbling us," he murmured. "But kindness is what makes us endure." Those words cut deep. Kindness was what Daniel had buried beneath years of chasing wealth and recognition. And here were the very people who had once shown him kindness, now forgotten by everyone, including him. An idea began to form, bold and unexpected. He couldn't just give them money and walk away. That felt hollow, transactional. No, this needed to be something lasting. "Mr. Collins," Daniel said slowly, "your bookstore, would you open it again, if you had the chance?" The old man's eyes widened. "The bookstore? That dream died years ago." Daniel smiled for the first time that night. "Then let's bring it back to life." The couple exchanged stunned glances. "I don't just want to help you survive," Daniel continued. "I want to restore what gave you purpose, and gave me mine. Together, we can reopen your store. Bigger, better, a place where no child ever walks away without a book." And in that moment, Daniel's wealth finally felt meaningful. The very next day, Daniel called his team. Architects, designers, financial advisors, everyone looked confused when he said he wanted to invest in a bookstore. "Sir," one of his executives began carefully, "bookstores don't make money anymore. Everything is digital." Daniel's voice was calm, but firm. "This isn't about money. This is about legacy." The Collinses sat quietly at the long oak table in Daniel's study, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of plans and professionals. Mrs. Collins clutched her husband's hand, whispering, "It feels impossible." Daniel leaned forward. "It's not impossible. It's overdue." Over the following weeks, construction began in the heart of the city. The building that once housed the Collins' modest shop was transformed into a vibrant, modern space, walls lined with shelves, cozy reading corners, and even a small cafe. At the entrance, Daniel insisted on a sign that read, "Collins Corner, a place for every story." The couple watched in disbelief as their old dream took shape again, but grander than they ever imagined. Mr. Collins' eyes glistened when he saw children running past, pointing excitedly at the illustrations on the new glass windows. But the emotional turning point came one evening, just days before the grand opening. Daniel walked into the half-finished store to find Mr. Collins sitting quietly among the shelves. "You've given us back our lives," the old man said, voice cracking. "Why would a man like you do all this?" Daniel hesitated, then replied, "Because when I was a lost boy, you gave me hope without asking for anything in return. Now it's my turn. And this time, I'm not walking away." Mr. Collins wiped his eyes, realizing this wasn't just charity. It was redemption. The grand opening of Collins Corner drew more people than anyone expected. Families, children, teachers, even reporters filled the streets. Balloons lined the entrance, and the scent of fresh coffee drifted from the small cafe inside. The once-forgotten bookstore had become the heartbeat of the neighborhood again. Daniel stood quietly off to the side, watching as the Collinses cut the ribbon with trembling hands. The crowd erupted in cheers. Mrs. Collins pressed her hands to her mouth, overwhelmed, while Mr. Collins whispered, "It feels like a miracle." Inside, children rushed to the shelves, some picking up their very first books. Daniel noticed a little boy clutching a novel, his eyes wide with wonder. For a moment, Daniel saw himself at that age, lost, uncertain, but saved by the kindness of two bookstore owners who had believed in him. A journalist approached Daniel. "You're a millionaire with countless businesses. Why invest in a bookstore?" Daniel glanced at the Collinses, their faces glowing with joy, and then back at the children flipping pages with excitement. "Because not every investment is about profit," he replied. "Some investments are about people. About stories. About hope." As the day came to an end, the Collinses stood beside him. Tears shone in Mrs. Collins' eyes as she whispered, "You didn't just give us a store, Daniel. You gave us our dignity back." Daniel smiled softly. "No, you gave me mine." For the first time in years, he felt whole, not because of his wealth, but because he had remembered what it meant to be human. And so, a millionaire's greatest success was not counted in dollars, but in lives touched, dreams restored, and a legacy of kindness that would outlast him.